Hi, and a great big warm welcome to episode 23, season 2 of the Ask Zofie podcast. If you listened or watched to last week's podcast episode, thank you. I watched a tiny bit back because I was really mindful that I was so like, woo! I can be quite like that anyway, because I'm so kind of tapped into the divine and light that sometimes I'm a little bit just like, I don't want to necessarily say ungrounded, but just like with the fairies. And so thanks if you managed to get through that. I'm really, really thankful to you. And today we are continuing in a similar vein, because if you listened to last week's episode, you will know, or if you are in my membership, you will know, because I mentioned it in my email this morning, or also if you follow me on Instagram, because I mentioned it there too. But today, this morning was my initiation into the world of colonic irrigation. Whoa. And so that also left me a bit like, whoa, which I'll talk about in just a second in my behind the scenes. I actually will talk about it probably more going forward, maybe even do a whole episode, because it was, there was just a lot going on. And I want to process it before I share some of the stuff. And I don't mean really all the nitty gritty ins and outs, but more of the energetic, emotional, spiritual side of things. But I'll share a bit in a moment. However, before that, I can't find my hard copy book of Love Notes. I don't know what I've done with it. It won't be far. So I'm going to share from my paperback. And this is an old one because it is the original Love Notes from God. As you probably know, that if you purchase it now, it's just Love Notes. So I haven't picked a page yet. I'm going to just pick it now. I'm going to pick something with the intention that it's for me and for you. And the cool thing, or one of the cool things about energy, is that it's not bound by time and space in the same way that things of the physical world are. So, you know, whether you're watching this pretty much when I put it out in the world, or weeks or months or years later, if the message is in here for you, it will land with you, and you'll know, because it will resonate. So let's see what Love Notes has to say for you today. This is page 77. It's the year of my birth. Not that you need to know that, or half of the stuff I say. Anyway. Come, lay at my feet, my beloved, for in doing so it is you who shall be worshipped. Come home to me now. And this reminds me of, like, every morning, one of the things that I do, typically I listen to one of my meditations from either the member area or Reframe before I go to bed, and then I will do the same in the morning, and or I will do a kind of just my version of tuning into the divine. And that typically includes me saying to what I think of as God. And of course, you can interchange that with whatever word works for you. Word doesn't matter. I will imagine laying the feet of the divine. Obviously, the divine doesn't actually have feet because it's an essence, but anyway, of God, and saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you, I love you, I love you. And this really grounds me in this humility, this love, this reverence. And what I just said, which I've forgotten already, reminds me of this, speaks to this. Come lay at my feet. Lay at my feet, my beloved, for in doing so it is you who shall be worshipped. And here's the thing, I've talked about this before, I forget where, probably a bunch of times, the power of being humble, because as like a sunrise, a sunset, a starry night sky, these awesome aspects of nature aren't humble, you know, they're grand, they're awesome, majestic, but the divine is deeply humble. And when you humble yourself, when you say thank you, when you don't make it about you, then you are the one to whom all is given. This is one of the many paradoxes of how this universe built on, born of love, this is, it contains so many of them that the mind just can't even begin to grapple with. Okay, today, I wasn't sure, as I said last week, if you listened, whether or not I was going to do a podcast today, but I am. So here I am. And partly because of that, it just means that I didn't have a set thing to talk about. So I'm actually just going to share a few things that are on my mind that I think are helpful. As you know, that's my thing in life. I just want to be helpful. Nothing gives me greater pleasure than that, being the person that can, I don't know, I remember when I was training jiu-jitsu a number of years back, and I wasn't not particularly competent, but I'd been going for I don't know, a bunch of weeks or months, and there was a newer girl joining who looked, that sort of lost, and it was just such a joy for me to like show her the ropes and take her from that place of feeling like, oh my God, I'm the odd one out, to like, there's a friendly face here, and I just love that. Anyway, I don't know why I was talking about that, but yeah, my thing is to be helpful. So I'm going to share some random musings. However, yeah, before that, so this morning, I've wanted on some level to get a colonic for, it's one of those things like with ayahuasca, it had been in my mind, on my mind for a while, and then eventually it's like, right, now's the time. And I was getting a beauty treatment 2 or 3 months back, and the girl who was giving me the treatment, we ended up somehow talking about colonic, and she said she went to this lady called Catherine and she really recommended her. And I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this thing, I want to do it with someone who I'm going to feel as comfortable as I can with. So I was like, right, I'm booking this thing. Sorry, I am recording. I don't know why I'm checking. I know that I am. So I booked it when I was in Spain, which I think was January, and it was the soonest date that Catherine had free and I had free. So it was booked for the 13th. And there weren't any major like physical reasons. I know some people do it because they have major, tummy issues, digestive issues. Let's just say that. That wasn't the case for me. I have historically had that because I was so anxious, and it was a combination of my emotional state and my diet that caused me to have issues. But that's like so much better. So it wasn't that. But for me, it just felt like I'm just crazy, right? I do all these crazy things like the silent retreat and ayahuasca, and I'm actually I think at some point I'm probably going to end up doing a thing where you go into complete darkness for days on your own. I feel drawn to that. Wish I didn't, but I do. But I'm just that kind of person. So it's partly that. And also just felt like I like the idea of what it could do energetically, like cleansing and clearing. And I asked Catherine today, has she, there's these stories of people when they have the colonic and they go, oh, there's some formula in there from when you were 6 months old. And she's like, not sure that she's ever seen that or buys into that. But she said for her, it's more of a cellular thing, that there's a cleansing taking place there. So anyway, I just felt like energetically, because, you might be in a similar situation to me listening or watching, and that you've maybe had a challenging start in life. And for me, my life really does feel like the before and after, the time when I was uncomfortable on this planet, in my environment, in my own body, whereas now I have deep comfort, or certainly a lot of the time, and a lot more comfort than I did have. And so it felt like I wanted to energetically cleanse and let go of that stuff. And anyway, I went this morning, and I won't go into every single thing because, like I said, I probably will do an episode on it once everything has processed and landed. But I do want to say that the lady who did my colonic was absolutely gorgeous and so sweet and so lovely, and just the perfect person to be doing that kind of thing. Because for me, the thing I do want to say is that, I mean, it was a very powerful experience, and I don't mean just getting funny images of what that could physically mean, but I don't mean that. I mean energetically, I mean spiritually, I mean emotionally. I'm just laughing to myself because yesterday, Daniel is one of those people who finds it challenging to say certain words, like phenomenal. And I used to have a flat in Benalmádena in Spain, and he can't say that. And then last night we discovered that he can't say spirituality. It's the middle bit that gets him. Anyway, why was I've totally gone off piece and forgotten what I was saying now. Oh yeah, but for me, it was a real full circle moment, because particularly growing up, I had so much embarrassment, shyness, self-consciousness, awkwardness, like disgust around my body, my physicalness, and definitely shame. And actually, one of the things that used to happen, I don't know if I've talked about before, was it would be if I was like, I remember I was staying at my ex-husband's mum and husband's house, and I had like a nightie on, and so I think I was going to the loo or something, and I caught sight of like, it was whenever I would see a decent amount of my own flesh, that I would have this wave, this physical wave of, it was like disgust. And I never understood it. I understand it now. And I think what happened was there was so much momentum around being disgusted by my body that when I would catch sight of, like I say, a decent amount of flesh, this wave of shame and disgust would come over me. And I didn't understand it for ages, and I couldn't do anything about it, but it doesn't happen anymore for probably lots of reasons, and some of them that you'll understand. But this powerful sudden thing would happen. And anyway, so I keep losing my train of thought today. But the reason I'm saying that is because that also related to any kind of talk about anything like to do with my body, you know, whether that's like, you know, going to the loo, like menstruation, and any of that stuff. I was really awkward, uncomfortable, and probably there was a level of like, I don't even know if I want to say disgust, but that kind of vibe around these things, and embarrassment, awkwardness, all that stuff. And so for me to voluntarily go and have someone, you know, do the do of the colonic irrigation and all that involves, was like, it was a thing. And like I say, a full circle moment. And if you don't know what that means, I only know because I used to watch Oprah all the time, and she talks about it, where you're like back in a situation. So it could be like, there was a guy that you really liked at school, and they, I don't know, laughed at you or whatever, and then you see them years later, and they're like, oh my God, you look amazing, and like you're back in that moment, but it's different, and it's completely opposite, if that makes sense. So for me, there was something really profound about that. And yeah, the interesting thing, the only other thing I want to really say, well, it was amazing and beautiful, and I really, really rate the lady, and I will pop her details. I'll pop a note, I'll tag her in my stories as well on Instagram if you're thinking about doing it. She's in Chippenham. And yeah, her name's Catherine, and I think it's the Healthy Gut Clinic, and I would highly, highly recommend her, and it was such a joy to meet her. But the only other thing I want to say right now about it is that we started and did a certain amount, and so what happens is the water gets flushed into your colon like a little bit, and then it goes out, and then a bit more, and then you gradually, if you're able to, kind of flush out the whole colon, which apparently, I think Catherine said this, is like as long as your whole body, and like as wide as your arm, I think. Like, yeah, anyway, that's mind-boggling for me. But it was like, yeah, pretty straightforward. And then she got to this one bit, and I was like, I could feel this block, and I could feel this fear coming up. And luckily, because of all the work I've done and this, that, and the other, I was able to observe it. And I was like, I can feel like, whoa. And then I got through it. And yeah, loads more stuff happened. That's all I'm gonna say. But it was amazing that how energetically and emotionally that impacted me, and it reminded me of the shame of anything to do with, you know, bathroom stuff. And I think, is that one of my points to talk about? Yeah, okay, so I'm not going to say any more on that now, because I want to talk about something related to that later. But yeah, it was a thing. It was amazing, and I really recommend that lady Catherine. And if you're thinking about doing it, just go do it. And I will share more, but ask me any questions. Okay, so how long in am I? Oh, I can't see how long. I was going to try and see how long I've been recorded and see how long I've been talking about that. Okay, so a few things I want to say. Random things, as I said earlier. The first is the power of letting things come to you. Okay, I, at the moment, obviously have 2 weeks and a bit ago moved into my apartment, and the whole thing is going to be renovated. So that's like the ceilings are getting skimmed, new windows, doors, carpets, wardrobes, electrical stuff, what else? Oh yeah, bathrooms, kitchen, the whole shebang. And so naturally that means reaching out to different people to come and help me. Now, there are certain people with whom I've worked before and I trust them and so on and so forth, which is ace. But of course, we know this, when you reach out to any kind of tradesperson, it can be the case that they don't come back immediately, they don't come back when they say, they're busy, this, that, and the other. So there are two people that I've spoken to recently. Both of them I have worked with a little, but one of them quite a bit, one of them a little bit before. And I'd reached out, and one of them came to see, said he was going to give me a quote, and he hadn't given me a quote for however many days it was. Now, because it's the guy who's skimming the ceilings, really this is like one of the first things. So that needs to be done before the other things can get done. So if that's delayed, it will delay the other stuff, right? But I know better than to chase him and to be like hanging on, like waiting. Okay. So there are two options essentially when you're in this kind of situation relative to whatever it might be. One is to be kind of like nagging and chasing. And, look, I've worked in sales and they would teach you to like keep sort of hounding people. And here's the deal with any of these physical actions that we can take, you can get some results and people do succeed. I'm using air quotations here if you're just listening with this. However, what comes about on the back of this versus getting into alignment and kind of just letting things come to you, it just pales in comparison. I was talking about this with Daniel with his work stuff. I was like, look, what can you do right now that like you don't need to wait on anybody, just do those things. Like, just, there's real power. I've talked about this before. It's can't think of the guy's name now. Teddy Roosevelt said, do what you can with what you've got where you are. I cannot even begin to describe to you the might of actually embodying this. And I preaching to poor Daniel all the time. And he's really receptive, which is amazing because it works, right? And I said to him, just do those mundane things. The mind doesn't want to do that. The mind wants you to chase the other people and distract you. But when you do what you can with what you've got where you are, you're not in the waiting energy. It's like if you're single and you really are so ready to mingle, but there are no decent people with whom to mingle at the moment. Instead of just sitting around with your mates and bemoaning the fact that there are no hot guys or whatever, like, work on yourself, like go to the gym, do some coaching, read, do the things that you can do now that won't be so easy to do when you're in a relationship and you're not in that waiting, needing energy. And there's such power in this. And so this isn't about never like chasing someone, or again, I'm doing air quotes, or like going out and ringing someone. Do that when it feels inspired and aligned, but not from that needy place. That's why I've got the module in Reframe all about want, not need energy, and the power and the potency of this. And then a super cool thing that happened actually with Daniel is that he wants a certain thing to happen in his business. He's been focusing on the stuff that he can. And then some guy just, quote unquote, randomly rang him today from a company he hasn't spoken to for 6 months. Because why? Because on the back of what he's been doing, he's been stepping into that God energy, which is, I'm not going to be looking at what's not working and like, that whole thing of a watched pot never boils. I'm going to just get on with my stuff and then let that happen in divine timing. And because, I preach this all the time, when you are consistently in alignment with what you desire in divine timing, it or something even better must be yours. Like, them's the rules. Okay. It's only when you're like waiting and needing and watching that pot, metaphorically speaking, that it's not able to boil. So these two people in my example, I don't chase either of them because I know they've said to me they're coming back to me, and I have trust. I have trust that there is such a thing as divine timing. And if I chase and push, then I might have to ring them 5-6 times and get all frustrated. And then when they come back to me, it's just also clunky. When you just leave that thing be, imagine there's these like spinning plates. And so there's the plasterer here and the woman who's doing my curtains here. And then I've also got to speak to the electrician here. It's like, well, what can I do? what can I focus on right now, and leave that to that great chess player in the sky to bring those other aspects in, because you don't want to force the plasterer to come at a certain time when actually he doesn't really want to come, and he's stressed and he doesn't do as good a job, or whatever it might be. All these different aspects, it's just, it's not, when you just let things come in divine timing, and you do your job of feeling as good as you can as often as you can, and not beating up on yourself when you don't, everything just flows better. It's more imbued with that divinity then, and it's just a whole other ball game. I don't know if that makes sense, but hopefully it does. Okay, yeah. The second thing I want to say is that I say this all the time, because I've done so much work on my level of like consciousness and being able to observe the mind and all of its BS. I really do feel like I've climbed up on the roof and I can look down and see, you know, how the machinations and the workings of the mind, to which we all are sort of liable to fall foul of it, to become its prey. And so I'm able to see what mass consciousness is around things. Hopefully I'll explain this right. So, as you know, I've been focused on manifesting abundance, wealth, money into my life, and I will talk more on that. Actually, I'm going to talk more on how I manifested all the stuff with the apartment, because it really is a life-changing thing for me. And I'm like, I want to like keep up leveling, and I want to take anyone who wants to come with me. I'm like, I'm a leave no man, woman behind kind of girl. Like, not on my watch. You know, if you're ready to show up to do the work, I'm ready to guide you, to inspire you. Okay, so anyway, when I was manifesting the abundance, and I'm in a much better position now financially for lots of reasons, which like I say, I'll share on. But I noticed how the mind is like, I really want this thing. I really want this thing. When I've got this thing, everything will be perfect. And I can observe that. And that's just really natural. It's just the characteristic of the mind, whether it's money, to lose weight, to have a baby, for your baby to grow up, to get a husband, to get rid of your husband. You know, we change it up depending on what we haven't got. And then the second that had more money in the bank, a substantial sum of money, what does the mind do? Goes Gollum. Let's hold on to this. Here's the deal, right? If you do not have the awareness of the nature of the mind, you blindly go along with its vernacular, with its narrative. And so when you don't have money, you blindly believe, you've got blind obedience to the mind that I just need it, and when I get it, everything's going to be okay. And so, yeah, money makes life easier across the board. It's a useful thing to have in your life, absolutely. But at the same time, of course, it's not the source of happiness. And of course, it doesn't just quote unquote make everything okay. If you don't have an understanding and awareness, you will just blindly, you'll be like hypnotized by the mind. And then similarly, if you aren't aware, when you have money, you will be afraid of losing it. And like I say, I feel so freaking thankful. And I really want to share this because it is so helpful that I'm able to observe this and see it for what it is. I have this in me. You have this in you. It's the human condition. We all have this mind. But what's key, as I was saying in my email I sent out to members this morning, is learning to not take instruction from those thoughts. Because if I didn't understand, that's just the mind, I start being led by it and I'm under its spell, and it's just not helpful. And the thing that I want to say is that there is this, like, you tap into mass consciousness, right? So say you get into a lift and you're frightened of being in enclosed spaces. When you get in that lift, you'll then tap into the energy, that the thought streams of consciousness of everyone who's ever got in that lift, or anyone probably who's ever got in any lift, who's been afraid. So it's not just your stuff, it's everyone's stuff. And I think I'm particularly sensitive to this. And so when I was doing the colonic, there was a point, probably most people's fear, ultimate fear of that, is that they're going to what? You know, they're just going to have some major explosion from there, you know what, and it's going to, yeah, not be pretty, okay? That's my sense. tell me if I'm wrong, tell me if you're concerned about it, would be something different. And as I was getting to the point where I could feel the resistance, the like energetic emotional resistance, I could sense that I was tapping into that, like the fear of everyone who's ever had any kind of I'm just going to say the word procedure because I can't think of a better one, like that. And when you're able to recognize this, like with COVID, for example, how much fear was there in the air relative to that? So if you start to panic about, oh my God, what if it's COVID? You tap into everyone's thought that's ever feared COVID and how much fear is there around that. So being able to observe, see it for what it is, it's just, I can't even begin to describe how life-changing that is. Okay, apparently I'm going to talk about me manifesting the flat. I didn't remember I wrote that down, but anyway. So, and again, I'm not going to get into all the details about this because I will do a full podcast episode on it. You have to remind me of all the things I've said. I'll do an episode on that because I can't remember. But yeah, in terms of, as you may know if you've listened to a bunch of these episodes, I consciously manifested Daniel into my life. I consciously manifested the apartment and everything that brings into my life and means to me. And really what I want to say is that like in my first point where I was talking about letting things come to you versus like Abraham Hicks say, instead of like trying to bang it into place. Obviously we live in a physical world, but non-physical, there's so much more to the non-physical versus the physical. And when you try and cut out the non-physical, you're trying to cut out, you know, the main part of it. And so me manifesting this experience, when you allow it to come to you, when you do it through conscious manifesting versus just the physical, there's so much richness to it. So like the experience today of me going specifically to Catherine for the colonic versus like I kind of let that come in. It was the right time. The person recommended it, felt appropriate. And so there was no force in that. And so meeting that particular lady, going through that experience, my interaction with her, our conversation would have brought it, well, it did bring so much to me, and it also brought so much to her. And it was exactly the same when I went through the process of purchasing the apartment. I think I shared this before, but the guy who was showing me around, emailed me the day after and said, I think I need your help with my daughter because of some stuff. And he went out the evening of the day of meeting me and was chatting about his daughter, and someone said, you need to see a woman called Zofie. And of course there aren't many Zofies. Hallelujah, praise the Lord, you're probably saying. But like, he must have been like, what? I need to speak to a Zofie. I met her today, and he emailed me, and it was like, what? And of course, that girl on a soul level was calling for help. He was calling for help. I was calling for things. And when you let the divine get its hands in the clay of your experience, there's such richness, there's such depth. I don't know if that makes sense. So it wasn't just I was going to see a property. It was that I was going to see this place that ticked so many freaking boxes. I can't even begin to say. And it also satisfied what he wanted, what his daughter wanted. And same with today. It wasn't just I went along to this appointment that I randomly picked out of, I was going to say the Yellow Pages, but obviously who uses, is he even around anymore? But on Google, that it would be on the Google nowadays, wouldn't it? It was all sort of divinely orchestrated. Again, the power of letting things in versus trying to go get them. I'm trying to think in one of the I think it might be in Reframe where I talk about the divine like coming after you, like lovingly hunting you down versus you seeking, and it's that kind of vibe. Yeah, and I think I said this earlier, with my moving home with the kids into this apartment versus the house I was in before, there's so much in that, and it really is transformative and life-changing and just like a wonderful experience that I will share more on it. But really what I want you to know is that anything is possible. Oh, and by the way, if you yeah, if you're listening, I'm going to send out an email later today, which is Monday 13th, to everyone on my list, my mailing list. And in that email, I'm going to send the most recent meditation I've made for members is just like so amazing, called the You Are the Storm. And then in brackets, mantras for miracles. I've taken the mantra section and I've made that into a meditation all of itself. And I'm sharing it today with anyone on my list. If you are not on my list and you want that, then even if you're listening to this later, subscribe to my email list, let me know, and I will get a copy sent to you. It's really cool. And by the way, yeah, if you're not in my membership and you want to just chill a bit more, sleep better, just feel re-soothed in life, please check it out. I'll put the link to that in the show notes, because there are some just like so beautiful meditations in there. I say this like so humbly because they're not like mine. They come to me and through me, not really from me, but they're just so imbued with the energy of my desire to love and soothe and reassure. So please check those out if you haven't already, and you need some of that in your life. Anyway, I don't know how do I speak so fast sometimes? So yeah, the thing with me manifesting this whole moving experience and what that means is that it really puts even more of a fire in my belly to share with you, look, anything's possible. If I can do this stuff, if I can go from this place to this, from feeling like this to that, so can you. And I really want you to know that. All right, my final thing I want to say, and I've shared this before, when I went to Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within 4 years ago, I think it was, one of my key takeaways was that he said that very often, if not, let's just say always, what fear says, what the mind says, is actually the very opposite of the truth. And like, for example, the one that I always think of is, it says, oh, you're too old to do that. And the truth is, no, you are the perfect age because of all the experience you have, or whatever that might be. And I was reminded of this today because when I left my last house, I like cleaned it as much as I could before I went. Of course, the thing is, the guys come at like 8 in the morning to start packing up the van, and you can only go into the room after they finished, and there's only a certain amount of time, right? Because you need to be out by 1 o'clock. So I cleaned it as much as I could, and like it wasn't, I wouldn't say everything was immaculate, because there were some, marks on the carpet and things and this, that, and the other. But I like touched up bits of paintwork, and I did my best to make sure that it was in decent condition. But when I took the washing machine out, it was like so moldy behind there, like gross. And I tried to scrub it a bit, but it really wasn't happening. Oh yeah, and actually the conservatory, I was like, oh my God, it smells catty in here. And I was really trying my best to air it and stuff. But my mind said to me, oh God, it looks horrible, empty, la 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 la, all whatever pile of crap it came out with. And today I got a message from the girl, because I Facebook know her. I used to go to a dance class with her, saying, there's like a tiny couple of things that were left, but she'd said, oh, thank you so much for leaving it so clean. It was really helpful for us, and I hope that your new place was just as clean. It definitely wasn't. But it was like, oh yeah, isn't that just the opposite of what my mind was trying to tell me? So this isn't about me and my freaking cleaning skills, but yeah, I got cleaning skills anyway. This is about you, and knowing that when your mind says to you, you haven't done enough, you're not good enough for this, oh my goodness, you messed that up, or you can't do that. What if the very opposite of that is true? Another time that I want to share that's just come to me when I think about this is when I wrote the meditation, Go There in the Mind, Go There in the Body, a bunch of years back after going to see Joe Dispenza in London. It was based on his work. My mind was like, oh, this is a bit different. This is weird. People aren't going to like this. Oh my God, don't put this out. Which almost invariably happens when I create anything. That's what fear likes to say. But it was so the opposite. That was like one of the most popular, and actually ended up being one of my most favorite and lots of people's most favorite meditations. Again, it's just the very freaking opposite of what that mini pants voice in your head says. Okay, I think that's it from me. I will be back. Oh, I'm just thinking next week. I'm gonna have I'm going to have the plasterer dudes in next week. So yeah, let me see what I can do. If I can record something like in advance, or on the day might be tricky, but unless I can sneak off somewhere. But if I'm not around for a week or two, then like last week, if I'm not around, it's because I'm having a colonic. This time it's not as exciting. If I'm not around, it's because the guys are here skimming my ceilings. Now that sounds like an innuendo. I'm back to last week's vibe all over again. But I will be back soon, hopefully next week, if not soon after that. I'm also, by the way, I signed up to do Catherine's and Keena's, and talk about lots of Catherine's today. Well, two, slight exaggeration. Manifestation Babe Academy, which I think runs for 20 weeks. And I've been following her for ages. And that starts Thursday, I think. I'm also doing an Amanda Francis course at the moment. Hers, that's kind of more related to parenting and being a mum stuff. And another woman I like called Andrea Crowder, I've done a few of her things. So it all helps to enrich what I'm sharing, and I help you hack your way into that stuff, because you don't have to go do all those things. But it'll be interesting to see what shifts happen through that, and I'll obviously share my experience. Okay, thank you so much for watching or listening. I will be back soon, and just take a breath with me and know that wherever you are, I don't mean physically, but just in your sense of self and life as you listen, I'm sending you so much love. And make no mistake that that is a powerful thing. And if you don't feel like there's anyone who cares, there are people who care, because I'm one of them. And I can tell you that in all sincerity. And so please know that, there are people on the planet, there's, the divine that loves you. And that's always the case, no matter how it feels. And I know it feels contrary sometimes, maybe much of the time, but it's always the case. And please know that you're not only loved and lovable, but you are love itself. Thank you. Got a bit deep at the end, didn't I? I will see you soon, and sending you loads of love in the meantime.